For the guy who hacked into the ELD initially, he said this was his first time doing it.
Wow.
And so, a first-time hacker was able to relatively easily, get into this ELD. And then he said, he even admitted that a more seasoned, veteran, hacker, especially a bad actor, could probably do it much quicker and probably much more efficiently and probably write more malicious software.
Landline Now, welcome back. We are into the month of June, and that means a new edition of Landline Magazine is hot off the press. To talk to me about that, Senior Editor Mark Schremer and Associate Editor Tyson Fisher join me. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Tyson, I want to start with you and the cover story on hacking ELDs. This was a very interesting story out of Colorado State University.
Yeah, so some researchers at Colorado State University, make a long story short, they hacked into a truck via the ELD. And so, when I first read that, it's like, all right, so we got a bunch of researchers who are probably in the lab dissecting an ELD, and we're able to hack it into that way, but it's actually much more frightening than that. So, I mean, what they were able to do was, they got an ELD, and some young graduate students who don't really have a lot of hacking experience were able to basically get the code of the ELD, and from that, they were able to write some malicious malware. And so what they did was they were able to, again, hack into a truck via the ELD. And what they did was that they didn't do it just by simply parking next to a truck. They hacked into an ELD while driving at highway speeds next to the truck within 30 seconds. Wow. So just basically just passing a truck, they were able to hack into the ELD. And what they were able to do was they were able to slow the truck down by hacking into the ELD. Now, in this case, they decided to slow the truck down just because, that's
probably the safer of the two options.
But if a bad actor were to do this, they could easily go the other way around and speed that truck up, into, heavy traffic or whatever. So basically what these researchers were able to do was they were able to expose a significant cybersecurity issue when it comes to ELDs and then, by proxy, the truck itself, because all trucks, that are regulated by hours of service, they have to have these. So if you have an ELD, then, it's reason to say that you are susceptible to, this major cybersecurity attack. So it was a very alarming report. Yeah.
And I know one of the students who was behind the wheel of the truck, I think that the ELD, they slowed it down. I mean, he knew it was a possibility, but he even said, it was scary.
Yeah, he said, no matter how hard he pressed on the gas, it just would not go. It wouldn't go. And so I'd imagine, again, the other way around, no matter how hard he would have pressed on the brake, if it were to speed up, it wouldn't slow down. So, so that's just one thing that they were able to do. There's no reason to think that there aren't other aspects of the truck that they can control via the ELD. And so the issue is that a lot of ELDs, although there are different brands and models, a lot of them use the same general technology. So if you're able to hack into one ELD, you can hack into many types of ELDs. And even worse than that, once you hack into the ELD of one truck, they were able to write software that would basically send a worm a virus. And what that means is that the affected ELD of one truck can affect the ELDs of surrounding trucks. So if you were to go to a truck stop, for example, and you affect the ELD of one truck there, you can then affect all the trucks in that parking lot that have a similar ELD. And so so you can understand the variety of problems we have with these ELDs and the cybersecurity issues for sure. Yeah.
And there was a professor involved in this, but the students, these weren't guys that had decades and decades of experience. These were young, fresh young guys.
Yeah, and I asked him about that, and they admitted as much. So, he said that for the guy who hacked into the ELD initially, he said this was his first time doing it.
Wow.
And so, a first-time hacker was able to relatively easily, get into this ELD. And then he said, he even admitted that a more seasoned, veteran, hacker, especially a bad actor, could probably do it much quicker and probably much more efficiently and probably write more malicious software. And so, Yeah, again, a lot of issues with that. And another big problem is when it comes to the regulation of ELDs. ELDs have to be certified by the federal government in order to be sold. The problem is it's self-certification. So yeah, there's not a lot of tight regulations in terms of ensuring the cybersecurity of these ELDs. And the researchers they admitted that. They said that had there have been more tighter regulations that some industry insiders have actually suggested they do, we wouldn't have this problem. But because we have the current system of self-certification, we now have the current problem of cybersecurity.
Now, you mentioned some of the ways drivers can protect their trucks. What were some of those things?
The first thing you can do, so what how they were able to hack into these ELDs is by basically getting into the preset password. And so with some of these ELDs, if you have the ability to change the password of the ELDs, that's the first and foremost thing you got to do. So change the password to something that's very strong. That would involve several characters, numbers, punctuation. Make it strong. Make it hard to hack into. The other thing to do, and this is very simple, is just keep up with software updates. So, the way I compare it to is like our cell phones. We'll get a software update on our phones constantly. And what those often do is that these manufacturers, they will see they'll find a bug in the software and they'll send out the update. So if you get a software update for your ELD, it could mean they found a bug, and therefore it would behoove you to update that because you might tighten the security of your ELD through that update.
All right. Now, Mark, this ties into one of your stories in this issue on some of the potential problems surrounding driverless trucks. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't go too far of a leap. If we talk about an ELD out there, and if they're able to hack into that and not just hack into the system of the ELD, as you said, and just change your hours of service. I mean, it's actually taking control of the vehicle. And now you think about this with driverless vehicles, there's actually nobody on board even to do anything or to attempt to do anything. Like I said, it doesn't take a huge imagination. And one of the things with ELDs is, it's no surprise to this audience that almost all truck drivers were against the idea of the ELD mandate. And one of the things that was brought up pretty frequently were the cybersecurity concerns. And, so many of those things were just kind of largely ignored and kind of taken to the idea, they're just saying anything to because they don't want ELDs. And now we've seen what can happen with that. Now, this is the time where the government needs to listen to this when we're talking about autonomous vehicles, because there's so much out there. One of the ways I kind of led this story was, if you ever watched like one of those disaster movies where in the first 10 minutes, the foreshadowing is so strong that we obviously know that something terrible is going to happen. There's going to be some sort of major weather event or meteor or something's the aliens are coming, something's happening. And this is how I kind of feel now. Like, everything is there, like telling us that if we do this, whether it's for cargo theft, whether it's for terrorist reasons, the idea that if somebody can get in to these connected vehicles and take control of them, there are going to be bad actors. It's not always going to be student researchers. If a first-time student, as Tyson said, can get in and do this, I mean, there are hackers that are trying to steal huge amounts of money. I mean, cargo theft is gigantic problem right now, all sorts of fraud. And then just the idea of what other countries can do. And this is being taken notice by people in Congress. Several members of Congress at a hearing last month were bringing up, saying, hey, again, it does not take a huge imagination to understand the concerns and things that could happen if you roll out this type of technology. And, similar to the self-certification, what they're doing right now is they really don't have those regulations in place at so many places for these autonomous vehicles. And hopefully they learn from past mistakes, because we're lucky that it's just students that brought up this attention. This could have been a horrible, much worse story than it is right now.
Now, you mentioned in this article that there's already been several surveys done, and it appears the public are very skeptical.
Yeah, and I know, and Tyson, wrote kind of a deeper dive onto that story too. I think it was maybe more than like 2/3 of the public now that are fearful of the idea of a vehicle with nobody in it, which I'm surprised it's only 2/3, to be quite honest.
Yeah, no. To dive into that real quick, it's 2/3 that are just straight up afraid of them. Another 25% are unsure. Only 9% are okay with it. So, yeah, for the most part.
What's wrong with you, 9%?
Yeah.
Seriously.
I'd love to sit down with them and be like,
They must know something we don't. So, but yeah, I mean, and the thing is, that's a AAA survey. They've been conducting that survey for a couple of years now. It's pretty consistent across the years. It hasn't budged much. I think in a couple of years, it's actually the fear has increased. And that's because every single year we hear about an autonomous vehicle pilot program that's gone wrong, whether it's, I believe it was Waymo that hit a pedestrian, and then we got the fully self-driving truck program that's going to happen in Houston or in the Texas area here later this year. I mean, hopefully it goes okay, but, it could go completely disastrous. And if that's the case, public support for, autonomous vehicles is just going to plummet even more. And we got several federal lawmakers who are actually urging NHTSA. You kind of brought this up, Mark, is that, there's no federal oversight when it comes to autonomous vehicles, which is something industries and even lawmakers have been asking for over and over again. And just recently, I think it was 6 senators wrote a letter to NHTSA just urging them to get the ball rolling on federal regulation on autonomous vehicles, because autonomous vehicle companies are basically they're beefing up their programs as far as rolling out these pilot programs. And so, I think one thing that kind of sparked that letter are these autonomous truck pilot programs, the first of its kind. And so it's really putting pressure on regulators to do something because right now they're being more reactive than proactive. The only problem with that is that we're dealing with traffic. We're dealing with traffic crashes and fatalities. We have to be more proactive than reactive in those cases.
And I think when you think of testing these autonomous trucks, and you mentioned the program in Houston, I mean, they didn't build another road to test them. This is being done on the road with other motorists.
And I would imagine that, if the public support is that low, I would imagine it's pretty consistent in Texas as well. So I can't even imagine what people that drive along that corridor, how they are going to feel. And I read several articles from local news sources that paint that exact same picture. They asked locals, like, how do you feel about, driving along the highways? And a lot of them, most of them are like, I don't like it.
Yeah.
It's simple. I don't like it. I'm not comfortable with this.
Yeah, and I would think that most of the people that are asked this and saying they don't like it is because of the actual traffic and driving along and concerns about crashes and those type of things. They're not even thinking about the cybersecurity and other issues that could go into this that could affect everyone. I mean, what if, even if this, just have a 80,000 pound truck that just stops because the system doesn't work and it's just stopped in the middle of the road, the problems that can cause. There are so many different factors to this that I don't think most of the, general population have even started to think about.
Mm-hmm. All right, gentlemen, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Our thanks to Mark Schremer and Tyson Fisher of Landline Magazine. You can check out landline.media for all the latest in the trucking industry. And if you have a news tip, you can contact us through our website or call 816-229-5791.